Chanu, actor, musician, model, and most famously, a very handsome man. This helped him stand out in the Korean entertainment industry, which has incredibly strict beauty standards. But his looks are a double-edged sword, because everyone around him seems to only ever talk about his face, and no one thinks of asking him any interesting questions. If you watched Master in the House, Handsome Tigers, or any other variety shows he appeared in, then you already know that he's actually really smart. Seems that the best way he gets to express his ideas is through his roles in K-dramas. In this video essay, I want to analyze the types of roles Anu takes, how his characters treat women, and what it says about him as a person. I will discuss 3 of his K-dramas. My ID is a Gangnam Beauty, Rookie Historian, and True Beauty. In all 3 of his TV shows, Anu's character is not the protagonist. These are stories that center female characters and their experiences with sexism and beauty standards. The female leads in his K-dramas always have a lot going on besides dating him. The romantic plotline is just a bonus. These roles seem to mirror his own beliefs on beauty not being important. Let's take a look at each of the 3 K-dramas in detail so you can see what I mean. My ID is a Gangnam Beauty is a 2018 drama that deals with beauty standards, misogyny, and pretty privilege in a nuanced and serious way. In this K-drama, Chanu's character is a feminist ally. Probably even the most progressive male lead I have seen in any Korean TV show so far. Kyung-sok is the type of guy to intervene when he sees a guy being creepy and steps in to defuse the situation before anything bad can happen. Sometimes he actually helps, other times he just oversteps the boundary. When he sees that the teacher's assistant is talking to drunk and upset female lead, he swoops in to save her, but crosses the line. She did not want his help and is really annoyed by his behavior. He does have a bit of a savior complex, but it turns more productive and mature as the series goes on. The male students in this story often discuss their female classmates' appearances in a misogynist way, and Kyung-sok consistently calls people out on it. When he's challenged to a drinking match to decide who gets to pursue the girl, he tells a classmate that he needs to stop treating women as objects. Later, Kyung-sok gets into a fight with a colleague over sexist remarks. Both times, he does it when he thinks women can't hear him, so he's not doing this to impress anyone. He calls men out regardless of who they're talking about, whether it's his girlfriend or the antagonist. His feminism doesn't stop at the women he doesn't like. Anu's character doesn't care about beauty, he cares about what's inside. When his crush is being superficial about looks, he challenges her toxic views on beauty standards. He liked her in middle school when she was not conventionally attractive, and he still likes her now after the plastic surgery. Because beauty is not what matters to him. Kyung-sok always apologizes after saying something harsh and urges others to apologize to people they treated unfairly too. In one of the episodes, Kyung-sok gets hired for a job because of his looks. He accidentally overhears that someone else is going to get fired for him to get that position, so he rejects the job offer without explaining it to anybody. He doesn't want to take away other people's opportunities, just because he can get them easier due to his privileges. When Mireille rejects him, he doesn't push and takes a step back to process his feelings and gives Sharon himself space. He does the same when he's angry at his roommate. He pulls back and avoids interaction until he calms down. But he doesn't let his jealousy stand in the way of their friendship. They end up having an honest and open conversation and get over themselves. After the main characters finally confess their feelings to each other, he lets go of his jealousy and we see a wholesome and trusting relationship. He's patient with her when she hesitates to tell people they are dating. He lets her figure it out at the pace that she's comfortable with, even though she behaves in a ridiculous way. Kyung-sok and his girlfriend both become better people because of each other. He starts being more friendly and less confrontational with people with his girlfriend's support. Mireille becomes more confident and gradually stops caring about other people's opinions with his help. Chanu gets a lot of criticism for this role because of how cold and unemotional his character is. but a calm feminist male lead is so much better than a toxic asshole. Viewers only look at his face in this K-drama and never listen to what he's actually saying. Rookie Historian Gu Hae-ryong is a 2019 feminist K-drama set in the late Joseon period that explores women's role in society and in the palace. Shin Se-kyung plays a strong and smart woman who has a fulfilling career in addition to her romance with a young and naive prince, played by Cha-nu. Even though he gets his own plotline and character arc, this story is not about him. This is an underrated K-drama that puts a modern spin on an inherently conservative historical genre. The gender roles are reversed. Hae-ryong is the strong one. On several occasions, the female lead gets into fights and saves the prince, not the other way around. She's the one who initiates most of the kisses and intimate moments, making him blush. He, on the other hand, is the soft and romantic one in this pairing. He writes romance novels, dreams of quiet home life, and wants to get married to his lover. This K-drama also subverts the commonly used trope of a man saving the girl from drinking too much. She's the one who can handle alcohol and drinks his drink. The prince is clumsy and bad at a lot of things for comedic relief. He makes mistakes and can't do a lot of basic tasks. When he suggests to run away together, Hae-ryong tells him that he will be useless because she will end up doing all of the work. She's not interested in him as a prince. She seems to be the only character who treats him like a normal person with feelings, and not like royalty. The female lead doesn't want to be a wife and a princess who lives in a palace. She wants to change history and fight against corruption. When the king tries to bribe her and offers her to marry anybody she wants, she does not ask to marry her boyfriend. She asks for more rights for historians instead. After they break up, the prince behaves in a mature way and they stay friends. This K-drama examines how men treat young women in the workplace. Hae-ryong has to work really hard to be taken seriously. The prince never thought that she's incapable though. He seems to like her because she's smart, while other men treat her like a silly girl who gets in trouble all the time. The male lead represents the next generation of men who are open to new ideas, don't hold on to traditional views of masculinity, and want to make society fair for everyone. He is contrasted against the old generation of men who are not willing to change anything on principle and want to stay in power. The male lead stands up for Hae-ryong and tells his honest opinion when everyone else is too afraid to directly criticize the king. The prince refuses to follow the path his family had for him and gives up his royal title to live the life he wants. He doesn't push Hae-ryong into a traditional female role. By the end of the last episode, they don't live together, don't get married, and both have their own interests and jobs, but still have a loving romantic relationship as a happy, non-traditional couple. He's a travel writer, and she still works as a historian. At that time, this would not have been a socially acceptable lifestyle, but this K-drama takes a lot of liberties with historical accuracy anyway. Modern ideas about feminism are inserted into 19th century context, which is exactly why I like this K-drama most out of all historical Korean shows. True Beauty came out in 2020 and tells the story of a girl who finds confidence with the power of makeup. And this is where the woke feminist argument starts falling apart. Eunwoo's character in this K-drama is actually a stalker when the female lead goes on a date with a different guy. Because Suho was following them, he finds out that the guy has a girlfriend and ends up saving Ju-kyung from dating an asshole by threatening him? Which doesn't make the stalking any less creepy. He also follows around a different guy to make him apologize to Ju-kyung, a character who is ironically played by an actor who is the stalker in a different K-drama with Moon Ga-young. Except their stalking is serious and not cute. Suho is quite mean to girls in True Beauty, including the female lead. In his defense, in most of the cases, he's just reacting to girls not respecting his boundaries. For example, when someone is sneakily taking photos of him or touches him without his consent. He's also unnecessarily rude to the female lead when he finds out that she's been lying about her identity. He agrees to keep Ju-kyung's secret to himself in exchange for errands. For him, this is just an excuse to hang out together, but for her, it feels like being bullied all over again. He does immediately change his behavior when she tells him about it, and he sincerely apologizes. True Beauty also has a classic wrist grab scene. And another one. Oh, and one more. This story is about love triangles, so it is inherently messy, with a lot of fights and jealous moments. The other two shows don't have this plotline, so they are more mature. Because it is set in high school, everyone is childish and impulsive. There are quite a lot of silly misunderstandings in the plot. A K-drama about insecure, traumatized teenagers is not as feminist as a show about young adults. Characters in True Beauty have inherently different types of problems. True Beauty is the least progressive show of the three, but it also discusses toxic beauty standards. Eunwoo's character doesn't care about what the girl looks like, he fell in love with her personality. Suo likes Ju-kyung because they bonded over their taste in books in the manga cafe where she wore her baggy pajamas and no makeup. He goes along with her stupid reasons to hide their relationship because he wants her to feel comfortable. The sister's plotline subverts the typical K-drama gender roles. She's the dominant one in her romantic relationship. The show does have a lot of complex and interesting female characters, and the plot spends a lot of time exploring their relationships. True Beauty reinvents the makeover trope. Ju-kyung gets the glow up on her own terms and ends up becoming a professional makeup artist because she likes it so much. What I do appreciate in this K-drama is that it takes the man less than an episode to figure out what his girlfriend looks like without makeup, something other shows keep up for 5 episodes. Kim Ji-young, born 1982 by Cho Nam-jo, is probably the most internationally famous Korean book. It describes experience with misogyny and sexism that Korean women face. Remember when Irene from Red Velvet read this book and male fans were furious? They burned and cut her photos in protest because they were incredibly disappointed. Irene faced so much backlash for simply mentioning that she read a feminist book. Namjoon from BTS also recommended this novel and was celebrated as a feminist ally. He gets to have his intellectual soft boy image without the backlash. Don't get me wrong, I am glad he's promoting these ideas and openly talks about learning how to be a better ally. A lot of Korean politicians also talked about this book and made their staff read it, and nobody attempted to cancel them either. Men get woke points for saying something that is basic human decency, meanwhile a woman gets villainized for reading a book. This is a great example for double standards. Feminism should be centering women's experiences and their work to achieve equal rights. Which is why we should not be praising men for doing the bare minimum. And yet here I am making a video essay about Cha Eun-woo as a feminist ally. Still, if we critically talk about representations of toxic masculinity in media, we should also talk about the times when it is done right. The type of man that Cha Eun-woo often portrays in his roles is a pretty good example of what we want men to behave like if we want to be allies. He calls out other men on their toxic behavior and doesn't reduce women to their appearances. He asks for consent and doesn't push a woman into doing something she's not comfortable with. He's secure in his masculinity and doesn't feel threatened by a woman who is smarter than him. All of these things should be standard behavior, but there are not that many examples of these types of men in K-dramas. Maybe he's not as passionate and dramatic as the guys in Boys Over Flowers and Nevertheless, but in real life, this is what a normal loving partnership is supposed to look like. We need to romanticize healthy relationships and not the toxic ones. If you meet a guy that behaves like the characters that Eun-woo plays in Rookie Historian or My ID is a Gangnam Beauty, it is a green flag. When people complain that he can't act and always plays the same role, they should look deeper and see the message that these shows have. Cha Eun-woo's K-dramas are not about the guys he plays. He's there to support telling complex stories about women. Are actors automatically feminists if they often play progressive characters? I have no doubt that Shin Se-kyung is a feminist, because she always portrays very smart and confident women who fight for equality. Actors who play villains are not necessarily sexist in real life, but sometimes they are. The types of roles actors choose say a lot about them as a person. Chanu has been playing a good feminist ally in K-dramas quite consistently. It can't be a coincidence that he plays the main role in two of the most feminist K-dramas I have seen so far. He chooses to spend time exploring characters that don't care about looks in TV shows that are deconstructing gender roles and beauty standards. Unless proven otherwise, I think we can safely assume that these are his real beliefs, and this makes me appreciate Chanu even more. I'm excited to see what kind of characters he will play in his upcoming work, and if these themes will still be present in the future.